I don't think I've played this game since 1998. We wanted everything about the interface. We wanted had like no interface, so everything was literal. Nothing was like a metaphor. Because you know, in a normal interface, the cursor is a metaphor for like your attention point, what you're looking at, and the highlight of a cursor is kind of like a metaphor for this is interesting, and your inventory, your verbs when they come up are a metaphor for what you're thinking about doing to that object. And we want everything to be just literal. So like when you're walking around, instead of highlighting things in the room, he actually looks at the thing when that came up. And we thought we were so clever for thinking of that because there wasn't a lot of that in games at the time. Like 3D games were not a big thing yet. And so head tracking, even though all games head track now, like head tracking is really, really common now. It was not that common back then. But anyway, we thought we were totally geniuses for coming. Maybe we were geniuses. But we thought that was really cool. No, I think having so much time go by has allowed me to have a lot of time away from the game. And so it's very fresh to me. Like I have not spent a lot of time with those characters in that game. It's been 15 years. I was talking to a friend of mine who had spent her summer up in Alaska with all these bikers, and she was telling me these stories about being in this bar with Big Rick and Smiling Phil and the things they would do, and it just sounded so, you know, out of the normal daily experience of most people. Yet people were kind of familiar with it, kind of like pirates and cowboys. They kind of are familiar with the genre of bikers, and so they could relate to it. But it was still bigger than life, and it would be an unusual experience. When Full Throttle was over, it was a big hit, and the studio wanted to make a sequel to it. They're like, let's do a sequel. And I was like, now I really want to make this game about the Day of the Dead. There were stories about how when you died, in Mexican folklore, you would be buried with a bag of gold on your chest, and then another bag of gold hidden in the coffin that you were buried in, so that when you went into the afterworld, the spirits wouldn't, steal the bag of gold. It'd be hidden in your coffin. As if this is the idea that you had to worry about thieves in the afterlife was so interesting to me, that you think those problems would be gone, you're dead, you wouldn't have to worry about that anymore. But crime in the afterlife just seems so intriguing. And I was also really getting into film noir. At times watching every film noir movie I could get my hand on, and going to film festivals and reading Raymond Chandler novels. And it was lucky that Full Throttle was a big hit, because it was kind of a weird game to pitch. I want to do this game entirely comprised of dead people, and I wanted to do that for years. And after Full Throttle was done, I guess because that game was a hit, I had a little bit of clout that I could make this crazy, weird game. And I was able to get Grim Fandango launched. As soon as we brought these two crazy elements together, film noir and Mexican folklore, it was like one of those things that just sparked idea after idea after idea. And just whenever you hit something like that, it's so rare. Sometimes you're just brainstorming, you're just like pulling teeth to have an idea of like how are we gonna, puzzles or rooms or locations or characters. It's such hard work sometimes to come up with ideas to fill in the framework of this thing you're making. But with Grim, it was like a fire hose. Like we couldn't turn off. It was just such a explosion of ideas and creativity on that project. It was really fun. It was a lot of people we've been working with before. The lead artist, Pete Sakel, he had been an important person on Full Throttle, and he was setting a high bar for the standards of the project. And Peter Chan, who had been working with us for a long time, and he was just this amazing, both creatively and also just the amount of work he produced. He just made drawing after drawing, just all creative ideas, and he really pushed everybody and inspired everybody to just really push ourselves to do stuff that no one had ever seen before.
Grim is my favorite adventure game that I've ever worked on. And let me show you guys something. These are my family photo albums of when Tim and Pete Sakel came to visit and used to do work jams on the island with me. And those are all the storyboards for Grim Fandango. And here's me drawing. I don't remember, but Tim swears that I was drawing so fast I was shooting the little ball tips out.
It was the first time I had ever worked in 3D, and so we were coming up with, putting together our first 3D art and animation team. And then bringing together like Peter McConnell and his amazing music. Years before, he had once, we were working at Data Tentacle, I think, and we were talking about dream projects. I remember he said, you know, the one thing we've never really done is like a noir jazz score. I would just always really love to do that. That's one thing that sat in the back of my head, and I was like, haha, now we're finally getting a chance to do that. And I think, you know, whenever you're getting a chance to do someone's dream project, they always kind of throw themselves into it.
What I did to sort of envelop the game musically was go to the classic film score model, Max Steiner, John Williams. This is the main title to Casablanca. It's a copy of the main title to Casablanca. It was a score that I studied to work on Grim. You know, there in something like Grim Fandango, there are sort of recognizable worlds with sort of little plums of, you know, this is sort of Central American city with a noir, you know, an Art Deco vibe to it, and this is a dock like in the Maltese Falcon. This is the bell that I used for the harbor sounds in Grim Fandango. Grim Fandango was definitely, you know, one of my favorite projects back in the Lucas days.
And he really just threw himself into that, and he did, I think, one of the greatest soundtracks ever.
When you're working on a new game right now, I mean, what is it you're trying to do? I mean, better graphics, better sound, better interface. What's the sort of holy grail of gamers?
Every game, we try to do more and more just a real story, a complicated story with a real human involvement. Like the new game I'm working on now, I try to do a story with just many more characters and that spans a long period of time for the characters' lives. It was a really challenging project. It was very ambitious. It was like a year late. A year? Year and a half. I remember it took 3 years. Had a big crunch mode. It was back when crunch mode was a lot more, like now we really try hard not to have crunch mode, but at the time we're like, let's do it. Let's just work around the clock all the time. And I was working there. I would start writing like at 9 o'clock at night and just write until 3 o'clock in the morning. I would listen to like loud, heavy metal music in my office just to stay awake. You know, you go home, you go to bed, just when you lay down to go to bed, you hear the garbage trucks coming in the morning. You're like, oh, people are just waking up and I'm just trying to go to sleep. This is terrible. The team, like, by the end of it, didn't get along very well. Probably shouldn't have mentioned that. It was just so, we were just all working too hard. And, yeah, we're just working everyone too hard. But it was an exciting time because we felt like we were making something special. We really felt like we were making something really crazy looking because we just stopped, and every once in a while we would stop and take a look at the screen, and it'd be this skeleton with an orange face and like a Russian hat on, wearing a guard's uniform, standing in a sewer next to a Big Daddy Roth hot rod and a white alligator. And we'd be like, what is this thing we're making? This is insane. This is a crazy thing that no one has ever seen before. And yeah, we got to do whatever we wanted. And I think the management of LucasArts thought it was coming along really, they really liked it. And they really thought it was, you know, being done really well, and they were proud of it. At the time, it wasn't perceived as doing, you know, selling very well, although it met its internal numbers, you know. It was, you know, it made a profit because I got a royalty check for it, so it did make a profit. But I think in the industry, I remember it was used as evidence of why no one should make adventure games anymore. But it won a lot of awards. I won Game of the Year from GameSpot. That was awesome.
Tim Schafer on my right, game designer for over 10 years. He worked for LucasArts Entertainment, where he designed Grim Fandango.
And so I decided to start my own company. And that's when I left and started Double Fine. We started the company in 2000. Yeah, and started working on this game, kicking around ideas for Psychonauts. Oh, what's that doing there? I feel like I own Grim Fandango and Throttle in every possible way except for legally and technically.
And it's like I went to Disney. I'm like, you guys, come on. You know, there's not going to be many strategic plans around this. They're very valuable to us, so we can make them even more valuable to you if we do something together on these. And they were very receptive to that. So that's where we are. It looks like Grim's going to happen, and we're going to re-release a remastered kind of version of it. So with Sony.
So Tim and I met with Disney and Sony, and we're agreed on terms for Grim Fandango. So yeah.
And it happened. I couldn't believe we're actually here talking about it. I'm excited that people might actually see the game after hearing about it for so long. It was in print for a while, and then out of print, and probably not reprinted, and then it disappeared. And in the days of disc-based games, that was it. And then you just couldn't get it again. It's not like a digital game now where it can just stay online forever. It just vanished. You just couldn't find it. And it was so hard with those old disc-based games to keep them running. So it quickly became unplayable. It wouldn't boot. People would have to, like fans, keep these things alive and support them for years. So it was really only the hard work of the fans that kept people able to play that game for years. But not just keeping them alive and playable, they're actually improving them. They made HD versions of the game. They made a point-and-click version of the interface, fix for some of the bugs in the game. They found some temporary programmer art that I was promised would never be found by my lead programmer. They did a lot of stuff to make the old game run better and play better. And so it's really the grace of the fans that keeps these things running. I'd like to interface with the post-release community for Grim Fandango to utilize some of their enhancements. And this new version will hopefully take as much as we can of all that good stuff that's been done to Grim over the last 15 years and put it together. Because this, we fought hard to get the right to be the ones to re-release this. And now we have to live up to that. You know what I mean? Because this could have been done by someone else. And we have to prove that we were the ones to handle this correctly. So I don't want to take it for granted that I should get to do this because it was my game, but we know how to do this, this new edition of it correctly.